if you come back to what you were saying there about leadership and captaincy, John Eales, the great Australian captain, said something to me many years ago, which I've never, ever forgotten, and I tell every captain, captaincy is a skill you learn as you go forward. And Caelan is exactly right. You have to learn how to deal with your relationship with the referee and get your point across as best you can to the referee. Now Johnny Sexton could have a grumpy hat on because that's what Johnny was great at when he was captain. But Caelan's got to find his own style. But getting the referee offside is not great. Look, I thought that the referees and the TMOs had quite a poor job on Saturday. It's a difficult job, but there were a couple of things they should have done. We all know that. South Africa were the better team. I'm not suggesting anything like that. I thought Caelan scored the try. I'll be right honest. But he wanted them to review it, and they reviewed it once. And he was saying, again, come on, again. Because he knew, he believed he touched the ball on the edge of the white line, which, of course, is a try. And he was trying to get that across. To be fair to Caelan, he said, I made a mistake. He's got to manage that relationship better, and he does. Because he was getting under the ref's skin. And once you get under the ref's skin, they're human beings, like us all, and they're not going to give you and they're not biased, but, you could hear what the referee, the chat between the referee and the captain was like. I'm certainly glad they didn't have microphones in the old days. Some of the referees would tell you some things as well, where to go, but you were doing something they didn't like. But I think Caelan will develop into a very good captain. And that's a valuable lesson for him. And this is part of John Eales' advice to captains. It's a skill that you learn and develop. And I think look, Brian O'Driscoll, his first game as captain, I was coaching him at Leinster. Brian came to me and said, I don't want to be captain. He was only 23 or something. I said, well, mate, you're going to be captain for the rest of your life. For the rest of your career, because you're the best player. You better get used to it. And he misspoke in his first couple. At the end of his career, Brian was a fabulous captain of the Lions. So, again, I think it's a bit of a storm in a teacup, to be honest with you, Stu. And that's what makes Caelan, to me, potentially a very good captain, because he's publicly, I made a mistake, I've got to get better, I've got to learn. That's one of the first things about leadership is owning your decisions, owning your actions. I was actually really quite impressed when he said that this week.
Alan, I should have done more research on you. How many times did you captain? Not how many times or how many teams, or how did you get on with dealing with referees?
Terrible, Stuart.
You only saw the cards from Quinny. You only saw, was the yellow or red?
Yeah, but that was never his chat, Matt. That was never his chat. That's what he was doing elsewhere on the pitch.
Never got a red card. Never got a red card, Matt. Plenty of yellows, all right.
Because you were that good. You were that good, mate. I've always told you, you were the captain.
Never got a red. I got suspended for a couple of sightings.
Gone in 60 seconds, Quinny, you told me once.
Never got a red. But look, captaincy is something that... you need to be able to speak, obviously, and pick your moments and get that respect back as well from the referees. But if you're screaming and shouting at a referee, no matter who they are, it's difficult. I always liked referees because my adrenaline and my kind of red mist would be circulating very quickly, and it was down to that kind of confrontational or that emotional kind of madness, if you like, that I would have had and needed to be a player. It doesn't suit everybody. It's about being able to control your emotions in those heated moments, even if you feel your team is aggrieved and that a decision has gone against you, or you were, onside, but a referee pulled you for being offside. It's multi-layered and it's difficult. I captained Munster. I captained a lot of underage teams. I captained the Ireland under-18s, Munster under-18s, Munster 20s, things like that. But it wasn't that kind of, and all my club teams growing up, but I think when you get to the higher level, it was a job that didn't really suit me because I needed to concentrate and focus on myself. And the likes of Paul O'Connell and Anthony Foley and Drico, Rog captain Munster a good few times, Mick Galway, Jim Williams, these players that I would have had, they had a great temperament about them and an ability to, kind of deal with that. I thought if there's too much stuff going on in my head, I have to look after myself. So anyway, enough about me, but I think I wasn't probably suited to being a captain on a regular basis. Probably as I got older, I felt maybe I could have, because, I would have learned from misdemeanors and how you deal with referees. I always respected referees, and every referee probably that I met after I retired, we always had a great relationship and a bit of a fondness, if you like, for each other. But I thought Caelan Doris, we obviously can't hear what Caelan Doris is saying, but some of those questions that he's asking Luke Pearce, particularly around Craig Casey and the RG Snyman tackle, he's making a point, and I can hear it, that when Tyke Byrne wins the ball in the line and pops it out to Casey, that there's a South African hand knocks that ball forward. Then he's making a point about the RG Snyman being offside, and he's really emphasising about the knock-on and the line-out, whether it's a knock-on or a slap down, so it potentially could be a penalty. I think then one of his players gets a bad injury, and then you hear that discussion of Luke Pearce becoming impatient with Caelan Doris, that he's asking him a lot of questions. Again, I thought that you've got to get your timing right. And Simon Easterby, someone who I played with, Simon was a very calm guy, and he comes across very calm in his press conferences as well. I think Ireland felt that he was not treated well, Caelan Doris. I think Luke Pearce is a very good referee.
And do you agree with that? Did you think he was treated a wee bit harshly?
Yes, I did, and I said it last week. And I think Luke Pearce, when he looks back on that and kind of analyses his own game, would probably not be, would look at some of the stuff that Caelan Doris was questioning about, legitimate stuff, and say, I could have handled it a little bit differently. I might be wrong, and I'd like to, I like Luke Pearce. I think he's a very good ref, and he's a very nice person, and he normally has a very calm demeanour. So I was quite surprised by it. Knowing Caelan Doris, he's not someone who's screaming and shouting in your face or using bad language or so I just thought it was a little bit weird. And listen, there was a situation, obviously, in that first test a couple of years ago. It was the first or second test with Nick Berry and Sia Khaleesi and Rassi talking about being disrespectful, to not having the same respect for Sia Khaleesi as he did for Alan Wynne-Jones. I just felt there was a little bit of this, that there was a little bit of, at that point in the game, South Africa were, Peter Steph du Toit was the one asking a lot of questions for South Africa, and I was just quite surprised that the same level of respect wasn't being given to Caelan Doris. He's quite entitled to ask those questions. He's the captain of the team, and his team, based on some of the decisions there, are not being, going against him. You can't get every decision in the game. And this isn't, I think it's misconstrued again a little bit in South Africa quite intelligently. They put Jaco Piper up during the week for press, which is not really a common practice, is it, that you send your referee
2 weeks in a row as well? It's interesting. 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, and but look, they're right. They're the narrative that maybe is coming from this side, and some of the questions that we have asked, and other journalists and other sports people have asked, and other ex-rugby players, they're counteracting that with Jaco Piper, and they're saying, well, let's not try and let the referee for this week be influenced. I think the video clips and the feedback have come from both sides to the head of referees, and they would have got their feedback from with questions they've asked. It's not always satisfactory, and they don't always agree with coaches when they send in decisions. So, but I just thought that was, for me, that jumped out to me last week, irrespective of the result. I just thought the way he spoke and that relationship wasn't right, and there was something wrong there. And again, I'd be surprised if Caelan Doris, maybe it was repetitive questions, but when you look back at the video of the match, there were genuine gripes that Caelan Doris was entitled to ask about his team.